Hello everyone, this is Caillou, back with another Moxtober daily wrap-up. Moxtober is a month-long event in which each day has a one-word prompt, and then you take that prompt and design whatever it inspires in you into an MTG card. So, usually I'm joined by Bradley Rose, who is who's like the brainchild of Moxtober. But today I have with me Ancestral, who is the creator and basically all just I think complete developer of MTG.Design. Introduce yourself and talk to us about what makes MTG.Design great.
Sure. Hi. So my name's Martin. I go by Ancestral, and I run the MTG.Design website. So it's a card creator. It's a great place where you can design Magic the Gathering cards in your browser. Doesn't matter what kind of computer or mobile device you have. And I've been running the site for about 5 years. Been very involved with the custom Magic community and was super excited for Moxtober. So just having this event where people can take a word prompt and just kind of run with it. So I'm super happy to be here and look forward to talking about a bunch of really awesome cards with you.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Do you want to start us off then with the card?
Sure. So one that I found kind of intriguing. So there's a card called Final Duel, which is a red sorcery for 1 red mana. If there are exactly 2 creatures on the battlefield, they fight each other. And so I think what's really kind of interesting about this is that when a lot of night battles, they're sort of like, it's just one versus the other, right? It's like this penultimate battle of, good versus evil, of one hero versus another hero, that, all the other bodies have been slain. In fact, in the art, you can see this battlefield that's just littered with corpses. And so this is kind of like, you know, basically it's this concept in a Magic the Gathering game. And so I think it's really cool. I think that, when there's exactly two creatures on the battlefield, that all right, this is it. And I suppose that maybe someone could do something to, like, add a creature token, play a spell or flash in a creature. But I think most of the time it's this literally is the final duel.
Yeah, and like I love like the art and the around this. It's super cool. Mechanically though, I wonder like because we do have Prey Upon for 1 green mana, so I wonder if
Mm.
like I guess Red hasn't gotten fight this efficiently before off the top of my head, but I could maybe see this as something maybe like if there are only 2 creatures on the battlefield, you can return it to your hand or something. That might be too oppressive. Just some way to like make this a Prey Upon plus rather than minus with the condition. But yeah, like flavorfully, it's super great.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with you there. It is very niche. I don't think it's going to be that relevant all the time. But maybe early game it would come up, especially if you have like a death touch creature or something on your side of the battlefield. In yeah, perhaps like in kind of like weird games of Commander or something like that, where there's a hexproof creature on the battlefield. This would be a way of kind of dealing with hexproof.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. I didn't catch that it circumvents hexproof. That's pretty important. Okay, so another card which I think plays into like this idea of like finality, which it has it in the name, Final Charge, which it's a common. There's nothing super crazy about it, but I think the fun part about it is the keyword Lancer, which is which is like this creature gets +1/+1 as long as you control more creatures than each other player. And by making you 2 tokens, it enables that very well. So I think it's definitely kind of it can be kind of swingy because like um, you can gain or lose creatures very easily and limited. So you can sometimes just blow out your opponent or get blown out yourself. But I think like the as an enabler for that, it's super cool. It's like just suddenly because you're probably gonna have more creatures on the battlefield after you play it. So it's basically flashing 2/2/2s.
Yeah, it feels like a raise the alarm with your charge effect. Just the fact that you get 1/1s and then basically you're buffing them. I guess it's you're only buffing the soldier creature tokens, but there's a little bit of flexibility here, right? Like if you're bringing in 2/1/1s and you're going to have more creatures now, suddenly you have 2/2/2s. So I mean, you can you can block more creatures, or maybe you can stack the 2/2s and block a single creature. Um, but I do like the flavor. I do like that. Obviously, it plays into White's strength of going wide. I think it's a pretty good common. A lot of times in the custom community, we're talking about commons. Is it a good fit? Is it not too powerful? And I think for 4 mana, doing two kinds of things, and the fact that you were saying, it is kind of swingy. I think it actually works out just fine.
Yeah, I think me and Bradley were talking on previous episodes. Like commons are hard. They're harder sometimes than rares when you're starting like flavor first. So I think that getting something down which is evocative but also like mechanically sound, that's definitely a thumbs up.
Hmm. Well, I'll talk about a card that. So this is the best card that I find, and best is like in quotes here. I don't want to like imply that like this is the card that is absolute best of the crop, but the idea being the most interesting, or just kind of a cool card, gets featured on the website. So when you go to MTG.Design, on the very front page, you'll see kind of a list of all the cards from each prompt. And so this is the one that made it on the site here for Lance, and that's Molten Lance, which is an artifact equipment, which costs 4 mana. It has equip 1, and then for 2 mana, generic mana, you can it becomes a copy of target equipment, except it has this ability. And so this is very powerful. The fact that not only can you make it like just be a copy of any equipment you already have, but the fact that you can clone it multiple times as an instant is actually really strong. With equip 1, it's obviously not too hard either. It does require 4 mana to cast down, so there is a little bit of a barrier you have to kind of get to. But I kind of like the there's something about the flavor here. Maybe I'm reading too much into the art. But like you've got this like kind of this fire, this sort of like lance that maybe can like morph into other equipment. That I just think is kind of cool.
Yeah, and the flavor text: Master Lithomancers can change their weapon mid-swing to better strike an opponent, and it's like, oh damn! So like it's literally being reforged, and yeah, so I really like this. I remember the person who made this, Brady Young. I think they posted on Twitter like they were inspired by like what is the person in the art for Masterwork of Ingenuity making? I think that's the name of the card, the one where like it enters as a copy of target artifact. So
Sure.
yeah, and yeah, like this design just kind of blew me away. It's really simple, but then it gets like the brewing gears moving. The flavor is on point. Just A+ all around.
Totally. Just be sure not to copy your legendary equipment, because otherwise it will burn up.
Yeah, you will get. Dude, Embercleave makes this very sad. There can only be one fiery equipment. Thank you very much.
Right.
So I know like today was definitely a day of like I think Lance was like a pretty evocative thing for like equipment or like red white first strike, but I'm a hipster, so I want to like talk about some of the weirder and wilder things that people got inspired by. And one thing is Lance of the Elite Four from Pokemon. We actually had 3 separate designs that referenced him, so I'm gonna like pull them all up in succession here. The first one is Caped Dragon Master, which is 3 red for a legendary creature, human warrior. Whenever a dragon creature you control attacks, you get to essentially look at the top 6 and then draw all dragon cards there. And then for 5 mana, or like for Wooburg, you can drop dragons onto the battlefield. Very straightforward Dragon Lord, but like I love the art. I think the general like flavor of it feels really nice, and specifically that like one thing is that like it isn't actually just directly named Lance. I like how it just kind of has that implication of like you know who this is. Everyone who has a childhood knows who this is. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's well designed. We've been seeing sort of this pattern of 5-colored dragons, and this is like another 5-color dragon commander that you could basically have, who ironically isn't a dragon, who can summon dragons. I think it's actually not too well. It says whenever a dragon creature you control attacks. So I guess if you have a number of dragons down, I guess you could get multiple triggers off this. Fortunately, it doesn't swing them right into place. It's not absolutely broken or anything of that nature.
Wait, what's the
Um,
one that does that? The dinosaur one, right?
oh, I know who you're talking about. Not a Tolly, but I think it
It's
might
it's the
be
Naya one, whose name completely blanking on the name, but yeah,
maybe that's Gisheth.
yeah, I think it's Gishat. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, I think I do like the flavor here. I do like the fact that right, like Lance here is, he's the master of dragons. And I think paying 5 mana to cast a dragon creature, if anything, actually is probably not that strong anyway.
yeah, because you have to tap
Having
him. You need 5 colors of mana. You're probably only saving anywhere from like 2 to like 4 mana, which is good. But like if you're running this in Commander and already have Wooburg, is not crazy. So it feels like a very overwhelmingly fair in quotes card.
right.
Okay, so the next Lance design, um, these two don't actually use the art, but they're pretty clearly referencing it. It's Lance Dragon Trainer, 2 red and a white, and this one just says, you know what? You don't need to attack with your dragons. And top six, what's that? Just tutors 6 dragon cards on ETB, and cheapens them by 2. I think tutoring 6 dragons is kind of insane card advantage. So I'm looking at this like, oh, okay, but I mean, it's exciting, and
Right, right. Yeah, I know it certainly is exciting. What's interesting is that it's red white. So, we're obviously not everyone is kind of thinking of Commander when they design these cards, but it's kind of hard not to. Legendary creature. Probably not that many white dragons to go get. But yeah, the fact that you can just get kind of it's basically 6 dragon tutors.
you can probably assemble
Yeah,
some
what
combos this way. Like I probably maybe not with this as the commander, but you can probably put this in a dragon deck and then have it tutor ups like um I know there's Scion of the Ur Dragon has some like combos you can put together with just dragons. So that also I'd like to
mhm.
point out like flavor wise, I like that it gets 6 because that's a full Pokemon team, which I think is the intent.
Oh, sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm. Which also might be why the other one had look at the top 6 cards, but that one's a little bit
Yeah.
not as sure. 6 is just a good threshold for those in general. Um, and the last one, Lance Dragon Tamer, where it basically just it gives all your dragons fire breathing, and then similar effect to the first one, you can put in a dragon card, but because this one's 2 mana cheaper and doesn't cost Wooburg, it's just a sneak attack basically, or through the breach.
Yeah, for 1 red mana, the fact that you can get X is the amount of red. So that's kind of interesting. So it's kind of like red devotion, like it gets a power buff equal to its devotion to red. I kind of like that. I kind of like I sort of like the idea of red sort of eponymizing or idolizing dragons, right? And I think this is kind of neat where it's sort of encouraging you to play dragons with that have that kind of heavy red influence.
Yeah, as opposed to like we've kind of come full circle from the first one, which is like play Wooburg Dragons. It's like no,
Right,
dragons are for red. Damn it.
right, totally. 3 mana putting a dragon creature onto the battlefield, that's pretty strong. Although the downside is you have to sacrifice it. Um,
But I mean,
but
if you're cheating in like obviously for the best ones, you probably have to cheat in a dragon of a different color. But like the Kamigawa dragons, which have like when this dies do an effect, like that's some good value
mhm.
there.
I wonder if this person or actually the other one was a 3/4, the Wooburg one we were talking about. Um, uh, if they were referenced or sorry, inspired by Zerulon of the Claw, because it's Zerulon has kind of that same 1 red activated ability. Zerulon searches your library for a dragon permanent and puts it on the battlefield. It gains haste and then you exile it. So this is kind of the same sort of thing, except you're just putting it from your hand. It gains haste and then you sacrifice it.
Interesting. Yeah, I always forget that card exists. I saw it on like EDH Rec years back. But yeah, that's a good catch.
Pretty cool. Let's see. There was a card I was looking at here. Maybe we can talk about Villainous Lands. So this is an artifact equipment that costs 1 black, and the equipped creature has Death Touch. It has an ability Word of Martial. So if the equipped creature is a berserker, a knight, a soldier, or a warrior, it has first strike as long as it's attacking, and it has equipped cost of 1 generic and 1 black mana.
Yeah, I
And
really.
so I
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say I love the art on this. There's this picture of this, kind of like dark night with this very orange, kind of sun in the background, and kind of looking off into the horizon. Um, I totally see the connection between Death Touch and First Strike, right? So that's always kind of like the dream I have, right? I have this Death Touch, you know, maybe if I'm lucky, I get to trade, with a bigger creature. But if it has First Strike, then it's like, it's a one for nothing, right? Like I get to destroy a creature. It's like basically a creature destruction.
Or like in this case, it's basically just gives it unblockable because they're not coming anywhere near that. But yeah,
Right.
I love the batching here. Berserker, Knight, Soldier, Warrior. It feels like I think Soldier, Warrior, and Knight have all been kind of in the same space for like for a while, and Berserker is just an addition to that as like this is a thing that fights. I vibe with that. This gave me an idea for like an alternative version of this where it's like on the base of it it has it gives a creature first strike, and then if that creature is black, it gives it death touch as well. Like maybe it starts off as a
Mm.
like because that way it's like um, any knight can wield it, but then only the ones who are truly villainous can use it to its full potential. Something like that.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way. I mean, like, a villainous lance, right, like there's something sort of evil about being able to just, destroy the creature that's blocking it despite, doesn't matter how large it is, right? But you're probably right in that people would be smart not to block the villainous lance.
Yep. So yeah, there's definitely been lots of equipments today. I kind of want to
Hmm.
shift it into an enchantment that I really like, which is at the joust. It's Mardu for and basically just an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep you can choose any number of those modes, and its target creature gets +1 in trample, +1 vigilance, +1 in lifelink. So you can spread the love around, or you can make one of your creatures really big and annoying to block. And since it isn't an aura, it sticks around. It's a 3 mana do nothing enchantment in 3 colors, but it turns all of your creatures into deadly threats. As soon as someone's sitting in the saddle and is holding a lance, they become a problem.
Yeah, I like that because typically when I think of like a joust, I think of like a jousting tournament, right? Like a tournament of lots of different knights, kind of battling it together. So I feel like this kind of evokes that flavor of it's not just one knight in battle, like in a tournament. There's lots of them. So you could stack it all together, or you could have kind of spread the love, if you will. Um, and yeah, I kind of like the life link, which is sort of interesting. I mean, I see what's going on here. They've got the red for trample and the white for vigilance, and maybe the life link is represented in black. But I think that typically you don't see life link when we talk about jousting or lances.
Yeah, like that one, I think it's just kind of like when I was thinking about that earlier, and I just come to look at the picture, which has this very like celebratory feel with like the popping
Hmm.
colors. So that might be what it is.
Would you ever choose less than three?
That's interesting. I think it would be interesting if like you had to choose different creatures for each of these. It might be
Yeah.
like at that point maybe like might have to turn it down to like I don't know, red white hybrid or something like that, or no, maybe like white and then black red hybrid. I don't know, so something like that. But um, that way like you have to have like enough party people to join in on the party, that kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, there's a few other really interesting creatures that maybe are worth discussion. Uh, so I see Goblin Charger, which is a Goblin Lancer. I guess that's the creature type. It's 1 red mana. It has haste. It is a 1/1, and it has Lancer 1. So this creature gets +1/+1 as long as you control more creatures than each other player. So it's interesting. We have this long history of wizards, giving us 1/1 kind of red creatures. Typically, they're common, and sort of like perfecting or sort of adding just a little bit extra to that like raging goblin card in haste. And they've sort of teased us with having like 2/1s, but it's not always a 2/1, or it's a 1/1, but later on it can get more powerful. So it's sort of like this the like the penultimate sort of having a 2/1 on turn. And this is kind of like the example of that if you're going first and you have a Goblin Charger in your hand and you play your mountain and you put Goblin Charger on the battlefield, you can attack with it, and it's 2.
Yeah, it's just Goblin Guide with no downside. But then if they untap and like play something, it suddenly looks a lot worse. But yeah, it's very strong. But I like that the only condition is just play a creature dummy. Then I'm just not threatening.
Yeah, and in a constructed deck, this would probably be really fun. And obviously, like playing all the small creatures, or getting down lots of tokens is going to help. Red is not technically like the creature color anymore. Like it's sort of it has more spells than it has creatures, compared to other colors. Um, but yeah, like early game, this would seem pretty good. And as long as your opponent has more of a control deck, I think this would perform really well.
Oh yeah, against control, this is just like they're like scrambling, like oh god, I'm gonna eat at least like 4 to 6 damage before I can deal with this, and I don't
Right.
even get incidental card advantage. Pain. Okay, so this is Moxtober we're talking about, so I would be remiss to not discuss Mox Lance. So Cajun has been on a quest to design a new Mox for each prompt in the true Moxtober spirit, and this one I think is like the previous ones, pretty reasonably balanced, all things considered. It's a Mox, it's free, it adds mana, but it's an equipment, and you can only add it while that creature is attacking or blocking. So you can basically only spend it on combat tricks or activated abilities. So I think that definitely puts a balancing point on it a fair bit.
It reminds me of Paradise Mantle. So Paradise Mantle is almost the same card, except it has equip 1 instead of equip 0. And it doesn't have the clause of uh, only being able to activate it when it's attacking or blocking. So I think it's absolutely fair. Um, and obviously the downside here is that it can really only be used on uh, casting spells. I mean, basically during combat.
Yeah, so mostly combat tricks like fire breathing, or maybe you want to cast your Turtle of Possibility during combat, something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely fair. When I first saw this, I was like, wait, it costs 0, equip 0. You can tap it for mana? What are we looking at here? What year is it? But yeah, when I compare that to like, again, to Paradise Mantle, or some of the restrictions here, I think it's absolutely fine. And I think it could be fun in certain decks where you get a bonus. We see some of those in Zendikar Rising, where you have warriors that if they're equipped, they have double strike, or if they're equipped, they can have an extra ability. So uh, the only thing I'm a little confused on here, I think the equipment actually taps, right?
Yeah, so because I guess the creature is already tapped because it's attacking, but equipment's tapping is definitely a weird space.
Which is probably necessary because with equip 0, then you could just re-equip it to all your creatures and add lots of mana. Um, I guess if you had a way to equip that instant speed, but I do like the design. I do think it's. How about this one here? So I'm looking at Reckless Lancer. So we're talking about cheap red creatures earlier. It's a 1 and a red for a human knight that has haste. When this becomes blocked by one or more creatures, flip a coin. If you win the flip, this gets +1/+0 and gains first strike this turn. It's a 2/1.
I like how it's reckless itself, or like it encourages you to play recklessly by always swinging, but it also encourages your opponent to be reckless. Like, oh yeah, you want to block it, don't you? Like, yeah, maybe you'll get lucky this time.
I always liked, maybe this is just, I don't know, me as a kid and kind of getting intrigued with, flipping a coin. I used to really love flipping a coin mechanics. And I think there's a little bit of tension about, are you going to win the flip or not? It's a 2-1, but it could be a 3-1 in first strike. So it's like one of these things of, uh, you know, do I do the very red thing and just kind of go for it and hope it just kind of works out in the end? And like you're saying, like if you're on the blocking end, it's like, okay, well, do I want to block it or just take two? Um, because you think, okay, well, if it's one toughness, like, sure, my 2/2 should be able to handle that. But yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting. It kind of gives you that moment of tension that we sometimes don't see in combat.
Speaking of like, well, let's like continuing this train of cheap red creatures. Burning Yard Lancer is the next one I'd like to go to. Um, so this one is an obvious reference to Eldraine. Um,
Hmm.
with I don't need the Embercleave to deal with you. First strike, haste 2/2. So powerful, like aggressive body, like, and it basically just says screw you to creatures, and it has this ability word intense, which I think is building off of adamant. Whenever you cast a spell with two or more colored mana symbols in its mana cost, you excel the top card of your library, and you may play that. So not only is it a good aggressive body, it also gets you card advantage just by playing your spells. But you can't use your bolts and stuff, so it's like it negotiates this interesting space for an aggro deck, and it also means that you have to play like high red density, which sometimes like if you want to like you can't play your Boros charms and stuff like that. Um, I know Mako, the creator of this, is designing a set called Eldraine Ever After, which is like a sequel set. So I think that this is probably going into that.
It this might be an homage to the original knights that we had, so like White Knight and Black Knight, which were sort of mirror cards. They were white white and black black for a 2/2 first strike with protection from the other color. So I'm kind of curious if this might be sort of this person's take on sort of like a red knight. Um,
Yeah,
the
red doesn't need protection from blue. Red's protection from blue is just going faster than blue.
Right, totally. But yeah, I mean, I can see where like you really have to go all out on this. Like, if you want to be red, like you're gonna want a very red heavy deck if you're including this card, to really um, take advantage of the effect. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I like the art, and yeah, I mean the flavor text is hilarious. So
Okay, you want to mention your next card?
yeah, so I was looking at. I haven't totally dissected this completely here, but so I was kind of intrigued. Someone decided to make a legendary planeswalker here. So normally you think of Lance, you think of equipment. So we have a planeswalker. It's Lady Sigrid of Cardinal Court, two red, and so Lady Sigrid has three abilities. You may the +1 is you may discard a card. If you do, exile the top two cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. Here's a -2, which is gain control of target creature or planeswalker until end of turn. Untap that permanent. It gains haste until end of turn. Lady Sigrid of Cardinal Court deals 4 damage to that permanent at the beginning of the next end step. And then there's a -5 ability. Each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a permanent. And Lady Sigrid has 4 loyalty. So it's not uncommon for planeswalkers to sometimes have like a card that like each ability is like loosely based off of. The kind of the first one there, it's sort of like our it's that we see that effect on red a lot where we can discard and exile the top. Um, I always forget the name, but it has like the picture of Chandra with her goggles. Um, and so that's like a pretty normal +1. Being able to basically just see two cards and play those. The -2 is really interesting though because it's act of treason, but then she gets to deal 4 damage to it, which will probably kill it, right? If you're smart, you'll take the creature with that maybe has a
Yeah,
decent power
and
and
if
can
you
help that.
don't kill it, then you probably just stole like a huge thing that's going to be like hopefully just ending them.
Hmm. Yeah, so like even if you just get one swing off of it, maybe that'll be worth it, right? The fact that it's a -2, you can actually activate it right away. The planeswalker is not going to die. So I think that's pretty powerful. And then the -5, each opponent gets an emblem with that at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a permanent. So I think that, um, I mean, she's basically just destroying the board here, right? We get to take a creature, maybe kill something with it. If it gets blocked, the creature might die. And then on top of that, like, this is just pure incarnate evil.
Oh yeah, it's just all like we were talking about reckless earlier. This is like the definition of
Hmm.
reckless. You're gonna discard your card to impulse draw. You're gonna active treason. You're gonna like I think red space of forcing opponents to sacrifice permanents is not something that's like super explored, but like I like how that does it here. Um, One thing to note is that the person who designed this, Canterbury Egg, is actually designing 6 cards per day for Moxtober and is going to make a set out of it. So
Oh, wow.
if there's a little bit of confusion of like how is this related to Lancer, look at the other cards for that have Canterbury Egg in their MSC set file. The MSC set file will be linked in the description, and you can put together her role in this world. So I
Okay, all right. So I suppose I need to see some of these other cards here to kind of piece this together.
yeah, she's like referencing the flavor text of the commons and uncommons from today.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think I have one last card I'd like to talk about before talking about my own. The one I'd like to talk about is Sir Eloana the Lionheart. So, a legendary creature, human knight, but she has Lancer, which is
Mm.
basically companion, but specifically for commander. And her condition is you have to every starting card in your deck is a knight, equipment, or aura card. And she basically is a great target for your auras or equipments because when she attacks, she free attaches them. So and she's got first strike and haste, so pretty good body for like carrying those.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, kind of, I think of it like a companion, right? Like this is kind of a companion. It has that restriction that is maybe not particularly easy to accommodate, and you can cast the Lancer from outside the game, so it feels very much like a companion.
Yeah, and I think restricting it to commander makes sense because like commander is the format where I think you are least likely to break anything by introducing companion as a mechanic. It's a for fun format that Aldry is eternal in nature, and so and like yeah, so and I think the name Lancer itself is just it makes sense as someone who's leading the charge for your commander.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of neat. I mean, it's a little bit different. I think of when I think of like a knight commander, I think of like Sir Gwyn, and I feel like this is, a quite a bit different, with different abilities, first strike and haste. The fact that you can attach an equipment, um, when it attacks, so it feels like a very different kind of knight. But I do like the whole sort of, a lot of times knights were sort of like mercenaries, right? Champions. People would ask a knight to fight for you, or hire a knight in order to do something. And so this kind of has that feeling, like it's a lancer. It's a extra creature that's sort of available to you. So I think that's kind of cool flavor.
Oh, interesting. I kind of got a different flavor because of the Lionheart. I thought it was kind of like
Mm.
you know how I feel like there's that quote, the hero always arrives fashionably late. This is kind of that, like waiting in the
Okay,
wings.
that's fair. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. Well, I suppose I should probably talk about, a lance equipment here, and then maybe after you here, I'll talk about the card that I submitted. And I was kind of asking folks for what they thought, which cards they thought were good, and there actually were two cards, both called Knight's Lance, which I mean makes sense, because that's who's wielding the lance here. But there's a Knight's Lance for 2 generic mana. So this is an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has first strike and reach. It has equip Knight 1 and an equip 3. So I like. how the card captures lancing like lancing. We you have these really long poles, right? And typically you're trying to knock the other person off their horse. And so it's got the whole reach part. I'd like to think that that is absolutely for flavor reasons, but it feels justified. Even though I don't know if maybe in real life knights could actually like birds or something in the sky.
I mean, we have those dragons in the background, so I think it's like skewering time for those. And of course, we have the classic rivalry of knights and dragons. So
Oh my goodness, I didn't even see the dragons back there. I assumed it was like a cave or a wall or something, but I absolutely absolutely see them now. I do like the equipping it. I'm always fascinated with those equipment cards that have different costs. It's the knight's lance, so the knight should be able to lance it easier or equip it easier.
And I like the flavor text. It's simple, really. Just aim for the chest and close your eyes. But then the mechanics tell a very different story of like, no, you need to be experienced to actually properly wield this. So,
Right.
okay, and I think we're running on the end of the show, so I think it's time to start talking about our cards. So, I'll start off. I designed 2 cards for today, and as I've said in previous episodes, I'm usually kind of a hipster, but then today my first design was one that very much was in line with what everyone else was doing, and I was like, this is too cool to pass up, but also I feel kind of guilty about doing what everyone else is doing. So I made a second design, which we'll get to. But the first one is Lightning Lance. It's a red artifact equipment that is 1 red, equips for red, and it gives the creature first strike. And then when it deals combat damage to a player, you can sacrifice it to deal 3 damage to any target. So my thought is the first strike disincentivizes blocking, and then you get in, and then it's just not a free bolt, but it's essentially turning it into a bolt. It was my thought.
Yeah, so it gives a creature first strike. So obviously this works really well on creatures with a higher power. Uh, that is really cool because it's sort of like pick your poison. Do I want to block and lose the creature? Do I want to have you deal combat damage to me and maybe still kill the creature? I think that's actually very powerful. I love that the equip cost is red because I mean this basically is like a lightning bolt. So it you know you really need to have red in order to kind of get it going. Um, yeah, I don't think I'd want to face a creature with land.
For sure. Okay. Um, so the second card I designed when I was trying to be um, a little like more hipstery, back on brand, was Gloomlance Spores. So I know that I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember hearing like Lance and like the in like the naming conventions for like mushrooms, and I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? I wonder if is there a green black hybrid Death Touch combat trick, and there wasn't. In fact, there wasn't even. I don't think there was even a single green black combat trick to my if I remember right. So I was like, oh okay. And so previous Death Touch combat tricks have granted, I think +2/+1 or +1/+2. I decided to give that all into the toughness that your creature survives. I kind of like it. I think it's both. I feel like both the cards I designed today are simple, but simple in ways that make me satisfied.
Yeah, I always kind of liked the what was it, Alchemist, not Alchemist File, Alchemist Gift, where you kind of choose Death Touch or Lifelink. Um, but here you're getting Death Touch, which I think what you choose because if you choose Death Touch, probably there's going to be a creature dying. Um, it sort of also reminds me of the sort of that blue effect that we often see. I think it was an Ixalan, and we have a like Shell Shield, which is a newer version of that, where you basically pay a blue mana, give it +0/+3. Um, I so I kind of like this is like black and green sort of.
Yeah, because I feel like they can also be defensive when the time calls for it. But yeah, those are my cards. What did you design?
So I have a design here. So when I was trying to think of something to design, I figured, okay, the easy bet is an equipment. I think that's what most people are going to choose. Then I thought, well, what else can I design? And then I thought I could design like a meme card, right? Like there's lots of famous people named Lance, and we actually there are quite a few of those that people did, Lance Armstrong and others. But and I thought about a video game that I was playing. So Valkyria Chronicles is a game that was released many years ago, and there's a newer version of the game that came out recently. But and they have it's sort of a fictional, sort of World War II style game where they actually have these Lancer units, and so this is Gallian Lancer, which is kind of from the game, and it's 3 and a white for a creature soldier. Um, Probably I should have put human soldier, but maybe that's implied, maybe not. Galleon Lancer enters the battlefield with a missile counter on it, and you can pay 1 and a white and remove a missile counter from Galleon Lancer. Galleon Lancer deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. It's a 2/4 for 3 and a white, and when I was kind of figuring this out, so like the flavor is sort of you got these big soldiers and they're like these basically bazookas. That's kind of what this Lancer unit is. It's just like this like big bazooka or cannon that's basically on their shoulder, and then they just fire it off, and this lance basically just kind of shoots right out of it.
Yeah, and like mechanically, I like how it's basically like mini First Strike, where you can with some more versatility, obviously, but then like you can usually like block or attack with this, and then like if they decide to block with a creature, you can be like, okay, I'm just gonna deal 2 damage, so I'm effectively a 4/4 for 4. Like,
Right, right. Yeah, it sort of also kind of reminded me of like having a creature and being able to play a spell. It's kind of like having righteous blow. Being able to like cast that during combat. Um, the missile counter is sort of was harkens back to Icatian Javelineers, which is a very old card from Fallen Empires, where basically you remove the counter to deal damage to any target. And this sort of like evokes the ammunition that basically they only have a certain number of these lances reload. Um, it might be slightly cheaper, like maybe that activation cost, maybe 2 mana is a little bit strong, but yeah, I kind of was hoping for a little bit of a different take, sort of building 2 cards onto one.
yeah, and I think that's like the attacking or blocking condition quintessential white. So, yeah, this felt like very evocative to me. Um, but yeah, I think with that we can wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, I'll have a link to the MSC set file of all of the cards collected today. Um, Tomorrow's, or I guess uh, today's prompt, because this is going up on August 8th, is Rider, which I think will get very similar stuff to Lancer. So when you're making your card, make sure to make it on MTG.Design, and Ancestral will see those cards and will feature the best one on the front page. Um, and tomorrow's video, I believe, will have Bradley coming back for our day 7 prompt Mithril. But yeah, once again, thank you for joining me, Ancestral.
Thank you.
And yeah, with that, this is Caillou signing off.